The 1.5 times scope is extremely powerful, so in this patch, as you can see, they've been doubling down on it. They're taking it away from Capcan and they're taking it away from Oryx. But one thing that I don't see enough people talking about is the fact that Wamai is getting a 1.5 times scope, as well as Tachanka getting some scopes as well. So what they're trying to do with these changes is they're trying to take away Fraggers 1.5s and give them to people with more utility to further reinforce a utility meta instead of a Fragger meta like we have now. So with that out of the way, I want to go more over Wamai and why the 1.5 site being given on his MP5K is so good, and overall just give you an operator guide and kind of refresh you on how the operator works. So let's get into it. And before I get into the actual operator guide, I want to go over one thing right now, and that's the debate of whether Wamai or Jaeger is better. This is a common debate because they essentially have the same gadget, but tweaked a little bit differently, having Wamai be more versatile and having Jaeger be more efficient. So who is better and why? Personally, I think with the addition of the 1.5 times scope, Wamai is better. First of all, like I said, the 1.5 times scope is a perfect scope. It's great for close range, mid-range, and long-range gunfights, and there's really nothing wrong with it in terms of how much of your screen it takes up. Jaeger doesn't have this. Secondly, Wamai has way more range on his ability. Jaeger has a shorter range. Third, Wamai can catch way more stuff than Jaeger can. Jaeger can only catch grenades, so Wamai definitely beats him in the versatility category. Now, the two things that Jaeger does better is the fact that you place his gadget down, and it stays there for the rest of the round, so you can kind of play how you want, and he has an infinite amount of grenade denial as opposed to Wamai only being able to catch one per magnet. But I still think Wamai is better in most situations, just because of one simple fact. There are only 4 people in the game that have frag grenades now. That's Sledge, Nook, Glaz, and Yana. So it's actually not that common that you're going to be going against somebody with frag grenades to need a Jaeger in the first place. But you could be saying, what about smoke grenades? What about flash grenades? Well, for those two specifically, everybody's playing Warden now. So you would let your Warden deal with that. You don't need a Jaeger for those things. Does that make sense? So Wamai being able to catch things other than grenades is very, very important. So in this clip, I'll give you an example. I was playing inside of Bakery, as you can see on screen, and I put my second Wamai disc in small Bakery, and it caught the H charge that was about to open the wall on me in Bakery. So using it to catch H charges, Zofia stuns, or other like Gone 6-ish type utilities instead of using it solely for grenades is very powerful as Wamai, and it's something that's a bit underutilized, and it makes him, in my opinion, especially with the 1.5 times scope, better than Jaeger ever could be. The first thing that I do want to talk about Wamai in terms of actual tips is the fact that you want to be placing the Wamai gadgets that are in the round furthest away from you first, and then the Wamai gadgets that you're going to use, that you're going to play off of, you're going to use last. Now there's one simple reason that you do this, and that reason is that Wamai is meant to be an anchorer. If you roam with Wamai, you shouldn't be roaming with Wamai because Wamai has a rechargeable ability. This means that the longer he stays alive, the more utility he's going to get, just like Legion. And the people that stay alive the longest are anchorers because they're sitting in sight and they're not seeing action until like the last minute and a half of the round. So you want to be anchoring with Wamai not only because of the rechargeable ability and the usefulness you'll get just by playing time, but also because you want to use his utility to hold space or to like hold a deployable shield or whatever. Now I'll show you another example on screen. I'm placing the Wamai magnets down that are farthest away from where I'm playing first, so that whenever I'm playing and I'm sitting wherever I'm holding, I'll have already got back a few Wamai magnets that I can use on myself. That way, if your teammates need Wamai magnets, you don't have to leave where you are, go give them a magnet and come back. That is very, very dangerous because you're giving up free space, but you're also going into lines of sight and lines of fire. So you want to be putting down the Wamai magnets that you're not using first. Another thing that I want to talk about is you need to abuse the range of this gadget and how small the gadget is. So this ability has one of, if not the longest range out of any projectile that you can throw at all. Like just look at the radius on this thing, especially compared to Jaeger and Melusi. The radius is huge. So you can throw one of these magnets down like 5 feet away from a door and it still catch the door. So one thing that I like to do is I like to hide these magnets as much as possible so that they can't Thatcher it, they can't EMP it, they can't shoot it, they can't IQ it, they can't Brava the gadget, right? All they can do is just burn it, right? Essentially. So you can use the range of these magnets to your advantage by putting them in very hidden locations that are still able to catch things through a window or through the door that you're protecting, right? And then also it has good range, but it's very, very small, and you can throw it wherever you want to, right? So if it's small and you can throw it, just like proximity alarms or Valkyrie can, right? If it's very small and you can throw it, you can put them anywhere, you can hide them anywhere. That's why Valkyrie is so good, because her cameras are hidden, they're small, and you can throw them anywhere, right? So Wamai, it's the same thing. You can hide these things in such good places and them still catch anything that you want them to catch because of the amount of range that it has. So that's my second tip, is abuse the range, the size, and the fact that you can throw these Wamai magnets to your fullest advantage whenever you're taking into account the placement of where you're putting these magnets. One thing that I do want to talk about, if you're a new player or you're a returning player that doesn't really know how Wamai works, this is a pretty good tip for you. You never want to put more than one Wamai magnet next to each other, I'd say within like 5 feet of each other. The reason you don't do this goes down to the basics of Wamai. Whenever someone throws a projectile or puts a projectile in the radius of a Wamai disc, the Wamai doesn't nullify it like Jaeger's ADSs do. That's another one weakness to Jaeger that Wamai has. Wamai, he pulls the gadget in and the gadget effect still happens. So if he pulls in a smoke grenade, it's gonna take the smoke grenade away, but the smoke is still going to deploy. The flash grenade is still going to flash, right? So if you have two magnets right next to each other and one of them catches a grenade, that grenade's still going to explode and it's going to kill the magnet that's right next to it. So you never want to put magnets right next to each other because they will end up exploding each other. You want to spread them out as much as possible. Again, this is really easy to do because they have such large range, right? There's no excuse to put them super close together, and that's pretty much it for that tip. One of the last things that I want to talk about when playing Wamai, as far as tips go, is you want to be playing Wamai not only as an anchorer, but you want to be playing Wamai for time. So one thing that is cool about Wamai is he is a 2-speed, 2-armor. He's not a 3-armor, which means he has to anchor, but he's not a 3-speed, which means he has to roam. He's in between. You do something called lurking. Lurking is kind of an in-between between roaming and anchoring. You're still holding space and making sure that no one gets in that space like an anchor would, but you're still sort of off-site like a roamer is, essentially. Unless the deployable shield that you're holding is in sight, then forget what I just said. But normally as Wamai, you play behind the deployable shield and you use your magnets to make sure they don't Dawn 6 or grenade your shield. That is the primary use of Wamai. So in terms of playstyle as him, you want to be lurking near sight. That's your entire job. That being said, if you're playing off site, that means you're a roamer technically, which means you need to be wasting time. But if you're playing as an anchorer, that means you need to be using utility. And those are two very different playstyle differences, which are really subtle, but extremely noticeable, especially in the high ranks of play. So what do? The answer is both. You use utility to waste time instead of a roamer using their presence and their gun to waste time. So you kind of have to play him in a flex sort of way. He's a flex operator. If you don't know what a flex operator is, I have role guides all on this channel that explain what roles are. But you're kind of meant to do a little bit of everything and do what needs to be done. And it does depend on every single objective and what you're doing, unfortunately. So it's just going to come down to how much experience you have playing Wamai. Typically, though, what happens is they realize that you're a Wamai playing behind a shield, and it's going to be very hard for them to get off of that shield. So what they'll do, if they're smart, is they'll pinch you out. This example, again on Bakery, I'm going to bring it up, is a great example of them pinching me out. What they tried to do is they tried to go into Bakery using Brava. They hacked on my gadget, so I didn't know that they'd walk in. I heard them hacking the gadget, so I still killed the guy. But they also tried to go small Bakery, and they also tried to open up my small Bakery wall at the same time. So they were really trying to pinch me out, and it got to the point where I didn't have enough magnets to counter what they were doing. They were flashing me, they were acing the wall open. So as much as you want to be anchoring and holding space and wasting time, you have to learn when to leave. Honestly, holding space and playing your life is not as important as you being alive. It really isn't. Again, because you have a rechargeable ability, you can leave whatever you're holding and sit in sight, and that ability will still recharge. You'll still get the ability. Unlike Jaeger, where if you put his stuff on a shield and they pinch you and you leave, those Jaeger ADSs don't do shit anymore. They just destroy him, right? So you need to learn when to give up space. I wouldn't do it very easily. I would only do it if there are, I'd say, like 2 or 3 people trying to push you and using utility on you at the exact same time. Then leave if it's safe to do so. If you have any at all doubt in your mind that it would not be safe to leave, hold it out and try to get as many kills as possible on your way to the spectating screen. That's all you really can do, because as Wamai, you're meant to hold space by keeping the deployable shield alive, or keeping yourself alive for that matter. So waste as much time as possible. With that out of the way, that's it for the video. Like the video down below, sub the channel down below as well. My name's Alka, and I will see you on the next video. Later.